You want to state your name for the record?
Yes, Matt Eady.
Uh huh. And what's the name of your outfit there?
It's Eady Guitars. I'm in Athens, Georgia.
Awesome. And so, what are you working on right now, Matt?
Man, right now I'm doing stay pretty busy doing a lot of finished work. So
Uh huh.
a lot of lacquer work, and spent most of the day yesterday scraping out a bunch of binding on some arch tops.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
by scraping binding, you mean you did color work, and then you're coming back with implements of scraping and getting the color off the binding.
That's right.
So
That's
you're
right.
so you're a scraper, not a taper.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I still do a little bit of taping.
Yeah.
I find that the tape on the sides of the bodies and sides of the fingerboard, it's nice to keep the majority of the color off of it
Yeah.
without having to scrape it because even the best scrapers that I've seen, they still take a little bit of plastic with them,
Yeah.
when they scrape. So try to avoid that so that we don't have a big ledge,
Yeah.
for binding. But I usually just come back and clean up with a razor blade on the side.
Just a
Yeah.
regular razor blade.
I've got a couple of different kinds. I use those Stanley ones that come to a nice point.
Yeah.
Also use the squared off ones. Those are nice, but I've also got here, I'll go grab it for you.
Yeah, man.
I've also got a piece of this metal, I think it's like banding, and I've
Yeah.
just shaped it into a little scraper. So what I usually do is I'll take this edge and hit it with a bastard file
Uh huh.
and just give it a little burr,
Uh
and
huh.
then I go right into it like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. 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 So that's
So
is that like spring steel? What is that?
um, it's like if you get a package of like lumber from like Home Depot or
Yeah. Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
they band them
Oh, the
up with that
band. Okay. Yeah.
metal.
Yeah.
That's what this is. So
Yeah.
it's got some flex to it, right?
Yeah.
You know, um, but it's just really nice. So one of them, I've got it ground. I don't know if you can see.
Back.
Um,
Yeah. Back. Yeah. Just a little bit there.
I've got just a little flat edge on that tip,
Yeah.
and then on this side, it comes right down to a fine point. I
Yeah.
don't know if you can see that,
Yeah.
but
We.
really handy, really handy.
Yeah. And not costing you an arm and a leg to buy a box of those either.
I've been using this one for 10 years.
10 years. So
Yeah.
where did that originate from? Did you pick that up at Benedetto or Gibson or?
No, this came from all the women at the Gibson Custom Shop
Yeah.
that scraped. That
Yeah.
this is all they use on everything. Those women are pretty damn talented.
I gotta tell you, like when you see somebody that spends a lot of time scraping binding, we had a kid at Breedlove who was a natural, and he would scrape the paste fill, and he would just take it and one big, he'd
Yeah,
move his arm around it, and this big, ribbon of paste fill and like a little bit of binding came off, and it was like, geez, Joey, like,
it's impressive when somebody really knows what they're doing.
yeah,
It's pretty damn impressive.
it is, yeah,
I think when I was there, God, I think that you had to train to be a scraper for 6 or 8 months
yeah.
before you could even start scraping production stuff. Uh,
What kind of pay was that? Considering that it was hard to get people into that role, was that a high paid job by Gibson standards?
um, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what they paid the binding scrapers. I do know that the one of the highest paid floor positions there were buffers,
yeah,
just because of how labor intensive it
yeah,
was on your
yeah,
back.
yeah,
I think if you walked in as a buffer, you got a nice pay.
yeah,
And I think the same thing with the binders. The binders got paid pretty well because a lot of them dealt with tennis elbow and tendonitis and all kind of problems. So those were the two jobs I think there that they wouldn't even allow people to work maybe 15 or 20 years. And then once you hit that mark, they'd have to put you in a different position.
yeah. That's
You
good. I mean that
Yeah,
one of the things I liked working about working in the factory is if you did have aptitude for just kind of being willing to learn. Like you could move around, and it really did. Like, I mean, I went into the finish department and was in there and in the string up department, and splitting up those jobs really did just cut down on that kind of the monotony for one. But yeah, that kind of
Absolutely.
destructive erosion of your body that happens in a
Absolutely.
factory situation. So I can't say enough about like getting around to those different positions.
Oh
Um,
man, it's really fortunate if you're even in a position to where you have the ability to move around. Um, I was really fortunate when I got hired on at Gibson. There was a guy by the name of Bruce Kunkel. I don't know if you
uh-huh.
ever heard of him. He's up
Sounds
in
familiar.
Nashville. He's a monster. I
Yeah.
mean, really impressive work. But he had just moved on from the custom shop weeks before I put my application in. And they just happened to have a position available in what they call was their pro shop, which did a lot of warranty repair and stuff. Um, but because we did warranty repair and that doesn't, directly generate income for them, we got pulled into lots of different positions in the factory line to try to help different departments hit numbers. So, I was fortunate that I was able to kind of get bounced around in there. And yeah, I mean, from day one, I was all about like learning as much as I could in there.
Yeah.
And, I quickly noticed that there's a mentality inside those factories where people don't want to learn a new job
Yeah.
because they're scared they're going to get stuck doing it forever. But I was just hungry, man. I was young and I wanted to just learn everything I could. So, you
Yeah,
know,
I started out getting into the finish department because I got good at string up and was finishing my day early, and
uh-huh.
they were having problems in there, so I would finish my fretting work or whatever, and then wander into the finish department and rub out and
Yeah,
sand out and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I got my toehold in different departments, was just getting done with my day early.
yeah,
But yeah, it's funny factory work. Whenever a young kid comes out of school or whatever, and they're like, "I want to be a guitar builder," I'm like, "Go work in a factory for four
yeah.
years, and then get good at every position, and then." Plus, there's all those little secrets in factories. Like every little bench has like some little widget that some guy made. 10,
No
15
doubt.
years ago. You got no idea who it is anymore, but that was
Yeah,
just the best tool for the job. It's probably like your spring steel. They're like somebody figured that out, and they're like, "This is the best tool," and now it's sitting there just waiting for you to come and find it and
right,
put it into
right.
your arsenal of stuff to do.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm the same way, man. If I talk to guys that are wanting to get into it, that's the same thing I tell them. Like, you got to get into a production environment. We don't have to, but that was my path. It worked for me. But you got to be hungry. You got to want to learn, and you got to want to do some jobs that other people just don't want to do. You
Yeah.
know, when I got into my little route into finishing, I started learning how to buff first. That was my first move because I knew that I was just impressed by the buffers, man. I mean, you've seen them when
Oh
you
yeah.
walk by that department. Those guys are like freaking machines in there. So it was just impressive. So I learned that, and then I really want to get into finishing. So they gave me a task to do,
Uh huh.
and if you're familiar with those Zach Wild
Oh
bullseyes,
yeah.
those, those models, so they didn't have anybody that could cut those bullseyes without, messing them up, really. So the
Really.
process for those were we'd spray them white, and then we had a what's called spray masking. I'm not even sure what the material was, but it was almost like uh, a latex material that you could spray over the guitar.
Really.
Yeah, so we would spray this masking on those white tops, and then we had a fixture that would fit into the bridge pickup, right? And it had a little arm on it, and I don't know how big those rings are, probably 2 inches. but they had a little notch for every 2 inches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just had a razor blade that could fit in, and you just had to turn it and cut each one, right? So you had to cut the masking without cutting through the finish and into the wood. They were having lots of problems with sinking into the wood, from people just getting too aggressive with them. Um,
You know what? I
so,
when I was down in Nashville, I saw a buddy of mine took a picture of a trailer that had like a pile of Zach Wilds in it. Was that
yeah,
like just tossed in there like kindling? Like was that like failures before you got into it?
maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But I know that they've had problems with them before. But it's really just, again, just finding somebody that just wants to learn, wants to do a good job, and, cares about what they're doing, really.
yeah,
I didn't have a problem doing them. So, I did a couple of them one day and they turned out great. And then I was cutting bullseyes for the next 4 months,
yeah.
because they had racks of these things set up ready to go, but they didn't have anybody that could cut them. So, that was my little lesson. You learn something and you get stuck doing it for a while. But I tell you what, man, the amount of experience you get from that volume of work,
Mm-hmm.
just over and over and over, you can't get that anywhere.
No, and
You know?
if you're an indie builder, like unless you're got a wife or a trust fund or something, I mean, your only avenue to escaping poverty as an indie builder is to have those speed skills and have a sense of what a time study on a project looks like, like so that you can
Right.
find out what you should charge for things, or like instead of approaching everything like a hippie. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of hippies in this industry.
well, yeah, I think there's a lot of wives and a lot of trust funds, but
It's
what
tough, man. I mean, it's tough to make a living doing this. There's a lot of people that want to do it, but I've just found out that you just put your head down to the grindstone and just crank it out every day. It'll work out for you.
I think that's right. Like I definitely was, my career was moved along based on not really being realistic and just kind of sticking with it. Like at some point, like all of the people that were interested in becoming adults kind of like screwed off to adult world, and then there's me left because I was just too
Yeah.
stupid to get the message. You know.
No,
Uh,
I've felt the same way before, man. Where it's just like, well, I'm in it too long. I'm too deep now. There's no
yeah.
turning back.
There's no turning back. I almost did. I turned 50 here recently, and I almost did a meme of the officer and a gentleman. You ever seen that movie? It's kind of an older movie, but it's he's in some kind of boot camp, and the drill sergeant's railing on him until he finally says, "I've got nowhere else to go." But it's turned into a meme, and I was thinking about using that for turning 50 as a luthier. Like it really like
About right. It's about right.
at some point you're just kind of like you're kind of stuck, but whatever.
This is what we do.
Yeah,
It's what we do. It's what I enjoy doing. I mean, it's a job. If you're wanting to get into guitar building to screw off and make an easy living, this isn't it.
it
Yeah.
really is not. We would get guys at the factory too that were definitely like they were all about drinking coffee and talking about tone, and they wouldn't last there because it's
Everybody
just
wants to get into it for the hang. You know.
yeah. Yeah, and there's in some regards there's a hang there to be had. But it's after work. It's
Right.
it's licking your wounds at the bar, and you know oh my god, at Breedlove we would hit there was a bar across the street from the factory when I was working there, and
Oh,
we'd
Jesus.
we'd go in there like a bunch of ranchers coming off of the range, and just
Yeah.
oh my god, terrible, because like zero hygiene. It's just a bunch of dudes, and we had zero kind of climate control at Breedlove. It was so rookie there when I was there, but so we're
Yeah,
all
but that's
all
just so fun. It's so fun when you get a crew of
oh
guys
my
like
god,
that and you're young,
yeah,
you know, I mean, when I started Benedetto, I wasn't married. My fiance was living with me at the time, but it was just there were 15 or 20 of us, and we were all between the ages of 21 and 35.
Yeah.
And the majority of them didn't bring wives, so it was just a big crew of guys, and we
Yeah.
did the same stuff as we were always hanging together and talking shop and talking guitars and playing and
Yeah.
uh, you know it's a good thing, man.
Yeah. If to any of you young people out there, if you're in that situation, really really enjoy it because yeah, like our crew, yeah, we had some real setbacks there. Part of it was we had our president was going insane,
Mm.
and nobody really recognized it. We just thought it was kind of like interesting ambition or whatever, but I think he was actually losing his mind. Um, but it was in that kind of early 2000s where everybody was like super .com optimistic and stuff, and so it was like he had no off button, and we just got these crazier and crazier ideas and crazier expectations in production, and it just wound up wound up kind of turning
Well,
ugly towards the end.
that production world's tough, man. I mean, the building guitars and doing your own thing, man. That's a tough market. You just need so much money to really get in that game. I'm sure it's incredibly stressful
Yeah,
and you know,
yeah, it is, and like we were kind of, I think Breedlove was bought out by some guys that were kind of in that .com hysteria. Let's get a cool. They were kind of investors or whatever, and they thought it would be cool to own a guitar operation. Oh, guitars are so cool or whatever. And then they had, I think, no idea that it's not. I mean, the chance that you're going to take something as small as Breedlove and turn it into a Gibson or a Fender or something like that in some crazy 5-year plan for world domination with guitars is just pretty silly on its face. But
yeah, everyone's just very, very. It's just tough. It's just tough.
it's a
I
tough
think a
thing.
lot of people have unrealistic expectations.
Yeah. The thing is too is like all of the knowledge on in terms of manufacturing a good quality guitar, like it's all out there now. Like
Mhm.
in the old days, like there was like still some secrets and still some room for innovation and manufacturing, but like everything in guitars now is on the margins. Like it's all of the can you shave 2 seconds off of it, not like you're not shaving 10 minutes off of a process anymore, with everybody being CNC'd up and everybody being jigged up. And
Yeah, well, and everybody's just outsourcing everything. It seems like everybody's just becoming specialists at one thing, and they just outsource stuff. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
I mean, same thing with what I'm doing, right? I mean, I got a lot of builders that outsource their finish work to me.
yeah,
Uh, it makes sense for them, though. They're not having to fool around with getting set up to finish. Because if you're in a small shop and you're in a garage or something, you got to pretty much break the whole wood shop down to get set up to finish a guitar.
yeah,
So and God knows how long it's going to take you if you have problems too. So for a lot of them, it's just easier for them to send them off to a guy like me, and they can just keep rocking in the wood shop.
yeah. I think that's right. A while back, I put out feelers to see if any of those guys wanted to send me guitars to fret, because like I don't know how many indie built guitars I've seen where the frets are like, oh boy, you have
Yeah,
not spent any time thinking about this. It's my new hypothesis is that it's because it's at the last of the it should be at the last of the procedures, and because it's at the last, it's where all of the frustrations wind up kind of congealing at, like, and so
yeah,
they're probably banging really hard on the frets, like because of all the other mistakes that have piled up on the mistake list on the instrument. But nobody's taken me up on it. I don't know. I've posted some good pictures of good fret ends and stuff like that, and I still see a lot of guitars that look like Appalachian Orthodontia Clinic.
There's a lot of poor fret work out there, no doubt. As you know, it's hard to do good fret work. It's hard on your hands, it takes a lot of work, and
Yeah.
but it's incredibly important. I spent a lot of time on frets and nut and setup work. Because I mean, if the playing surface isn't right, how what do you expect?
What do you got? Yeah, it's interesting. Even like going from a world of factory fretting to going back into refrets and kind of like on the vintage end of the guitar spectrum where all of the boards are like crazily different. You've got guitars that have been refretted before, you've got rosewood, you've got ebony, you've got varying degrees of quality of rosewood and ebony. You got guitars that have been well maintained and oiled fingerboards versus dried out nonsense or whatever. But it
Right,
really, when I got into factory fretting, it surprised me how much sensitivity it took to produce a good fret job in a factory setting where you're relatively getting the same cut of ebony, you're relatively getting the same fret slot dimensions every time, and it's just like there's all these little things that add up that if you're not paying attention, like you got up fret ends or you got frets that aren't quite seated or you got
right.
it's pretty interesting that it's still, even when you take out a lot of the variables, there's still a ton of variables in fretting.
Yeah, it is, and you would think that as I've gotten older and done more of them, that my fretting would be faster than it used to be, and in fact, I take longer now refret than I did, 10 years ago. Just because it's all of those little things you're talking about. Making sure the fret slots are clean, making sure your board's trued up good. All of these steps to make sure that at the end of the job, your fret ends are seated, frets are seated, and everything's crowned
Yeah.
right. Um,
it,
yeah, it's just a massive amount of work. It really is.
it is. When I got out of Breedlove, I could do, like, if I got a good guitar that was pretty relatively standard, like if I was refretting a guild or something like that, I could do a Breedlove style fret job on a guild in about an hour, like from start to finish.
Crushing it.
My that's First of all, that was a young man's
Yeah,
speed thing, but the other thing too is like, like as soon as I tried pulling that shit on anything where I had to pay attention and I wasn't paying
right.
attention, it was out the door. So yeah, my fret jobs have gotten so slow. Oh my god.
They're slow. They are. I mean,
I
but to do them right, I mean, it takes time. It takes time.
Yeah.
You can't really cut corners with it. I've tried, you know, and there's just,
Do you think
there's
do you think you could make it in a factory anymore? Do you think you could go back in there and mix it up, or do you think,
sure,
yeah?
sure. Yeah, I could. I don't want to, but I could.
I don't think I could. I don't think I could. It's funny, when I was working there, there's a guy in String Up with me named Gary, and he was just a little bit over 40, and it was always like he could either do the job, the standards, or he could do the job to the speed standards. But
Yeah,
it wasn't ever going to happen. Would work with him and try to get him little shortcuts or whatever. And then looking back on it, I was like 29 and he was like 40, 42, and I'm like, an age limitation. Like he just wasn't going to be in there doing a kid's job like
it's
that anymore.
beyond the realm of possibility. I mean,
I would
yeah,
think,
you
yeah, like,
can't. You can, man. I was wide open when I was in my 20s. In my
uh-huh.
early 20s, God, I would kill my hands.
Yeah.
You but I'm feeling that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it's tough being in a factory. It's tough work. It's repetitive work. But again, going back to the experience, you just can't beat it. You can't beat the experience you get. I
No.
tell guys sometimes. I was just showing a guy a couple of weekends ago. I was doing a little class with him about refretting, and he was really interested in just how to shape a nut and cut a nut and
Mm.
everything. And I knocked one out for him real quick, and he was like, "That would take me 4 hours to do.
Isn't that something?
And I told him, I'm like, well, when I was at the custom shop, our number for the day was, when I was there, it was probably right around 70 guitars in
Yeah.
final assembly. And they got different guys at each little station, but the guys that cut the nuts and strung them up, I think there were two guys in that position. So each one of them were doing, 35
45. Yeah.
guitars a day, 40 guitars a day. So I'm like, if you sit over there for 1 week, you're doing 200 nuts,
Yeah.
cutting and shaping 200 nuts. How many guitar builders are cutting and shaping 200 nuts in a year?
In a year. Yeah. Not even close.
You know what I mean? And then you're getting it in a week. So I always tell people, if you're doing them just consecutively over and over and over, you can do 10 of them and have one of them that you messed up. Well, when you're in that production environment, 1 out of 10 is not good.
Yeah.
So you quickly find out what you're doing that is making that thing fall out or whatever. So you can correct those mistakes really quickly. You can identify them and correct them. But when you're in your shop and you're doing a couple of nuts a week or something, and you have one you mess up, it's just you just messed one up, right?
Yeah.
You don't see it over and over and over. It's just easier to identify the problems in maybe your process or how you're doing it.
I was training an apprentice when I first moved to New York, and a nut broke him. He went and got a job in IT after an experience with a nut. It was funny too because he was a really he'd done a lot of model building growing up, and he had really quick hands and real sharp guy or whatever. I showed him how to do a refret, and I turned my back on him. And at the end of the day, I told him all the steps or whatever, and he just worked over there. And at the end of the day, he showed me a refret that if it came back to me to this day, I would think I did it. Like that. That's how good it was. Oh, I lost you. Yeah,
I think teaching's a good thing, man. I think I enjoy doing that stuff and helping folks out. It's awesome.
yeah, it's definitely I'm interested in doing it. I've always kind of been interested in it anyway.
Yeah,
For one thing, it helps me, kind of like conceptualize what I do, and it usually leads to innovation on my own
right,
end. Just from explaining something and then maybe realizing that I hadn't really thought it out
right.
completely, and I was doing stuff haphazardly or something, and so
Right.
I'll I'll look at it through fresh eyes, or maybe the person I'm teaching has a better idea. Like a lot of times,
Yeah.
people will look at something with fresh eyes and go, "What the fuck are you doing? What's that? What's
You know,
that?"
that was the one thing that impressed me the most about Dan when I met him
Yeah.
was how eager he was to fucking learn something
Oh
from
my God,
anybody.
isn't that
It
isn't that
blows
something?
it, it blew my mind that a guy that has done as much as he had done was asking me about finish work, and it was almost like I was talking to someone that didn't know a damn thing about finish work.
It's
And he's just like eager to learn stuff. It was really impressive. Like that made a pretty big impact on me.
it really is. This job. There's a tendency for guys to kind of create their own little fiefdoms of you know expertise, and they like they really kind of are in it to almost like start a cult or something. Like it's real ego driven, and I get the
I
feeling
can't
like
stand that stuff.
I get the feeling like Dan might have experimented with some ego reduction in the 60s and 70s, but
Yeah.
but
Well, and that's one thing I don't like about this industry. That's my biggest gripe is this this ego.
yeah,
This just you see it everywhere. This pretentiousness almost. the name dropping stuff. Like I
Yeah.
hate all that
Yeah.
stuff.
It's tough. Yeah. You know, I thought I was pretty cool in, being in guitars for a long time when I was young, like, cause, it's like when you're young, like having a cool job is, kind of a, like it's a cool thing. Like when I was young, like if you got to work in a video store, like, oh my God, or a
Right.
record store or something like that, you were like, you had arrived in the cool, the cool
Yeah.
jobs.
Yeah.
Um, and then, boy, that dissipated the first NAM show I went to. I walked in on the main floor and I looked around and I was like, oh my God, this is not cool at all. This is,
Nah,
these people are desperate nerds. And
yeah.
yeah, like that people can get these crazy egos going on something kind of that nobody even gives a fuck about anymore. I mean,
Nobody.
it's not like guitars rule the world, and like, like there's all of this prestige that goes along with being a hot shot guitar player or being a hot shot luthier or something like that that world doesn't exist anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But I mean, it's still fun from a craftsman's standpoint. It's pretty fun to do. Like it's
No doubt. No
it's
doubt. I've met
it's
some of the most talented people in this industry. Like, it's crazy, man. We're some talented guys, man. You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird. I listened to a podcast a while ago about a guy that had restored clocks, and like was the world of clocks was, it almost sounded like, I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently on it, but it sounded like he was dealing with some stuff that was along the lines of what we kind of deal with
Yeah.
in vintage guitars. And I think that the market just dropped out of clocks. Like it was like, kind of like rich people move in herds, and for a while it's all about watches and then clocks and then guitars or whatever. But they kind of descend on something, and then when they decide it's passe or everybody's doing it, they move on, and then there's this kind of like almost like wreckage of industry left
Yeah.
behind, where guys have built up all these skills that, you know because the pieces aren't getting the money that they used to. The trade doesn't reflect that anymore. So it's interesting stuff. It's
Yeah.
crazy to think, like I almost like think about, like, you ever seen that video of those two guys that are like what's left of accordion repair in New York City? Like they're like the hottest shots of the hottest shots at accordion repair. And it's
No shit.
like, you got to think, like, at one point, you've probably seen, like, your grandparents had an accordion sitting around, but
Yeah.
like at one point, accordion was like some serious stuff. Like everybody was into accordion, like because there's a million of them or whatever, and then just, for whatever reason, nobody wanted to hear it anymore, or whatever. And now there's like, the industry has shrunk. I'm sure I'm exaggerating that, but I'm sure there are more than two accordion repair guys
Yeah.
in the world.
I get your point, though. Yeah.
But
Yeah. The clock thing is pretty interesting. I've seen some videos of some guys working on some old clocks, and they're freaking impressive, man. And
yeah,
it's very much the same kind of thing. Obviously, a different product, but it's the same shit, you know?
mechanical engineering, like the all the digital stuff with the software or whatever. It's all pretty interesting, but that crazy, like, cutting edge mechanical engineering before everything went digital. We had a guy in my neighborhood that was a typewriter repair guy, and I went over there and he had I'd never even thought of it when typewriters were still a thing, but he had
Yeah.
an old electric typewriter torn apart, and I was like, my God, like
Incredible.
the evolution of widgetry that must have gone in just to, to make this thing. It looked nutso in there.
Yeah.
It was crazy looking. I've seen high tech motors on new cars that didn't look as intimidating to understand as this typewriter looked. It was,
Yeah. All that old analog stuff is cool as hell.
yeah.
I think it's so cool.
Yeah. Well, who do you watch on YouTube for clock repair stuff? Are you
Man, no, I actually just watched. I haven't recently, but me and my wife started watching this show. What was it called? It's like Pawn Shop Repair or
Yeah.
something.
Oh yeah.
These guys that are over in England.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Repair shop. It's just repair
Yeah,
shop.
repair
Yeah.
shop.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And they had a guy that was like specifically, he was the clock guy, man. And he was, just seeing him break down these old Swedish, and German clocks and painstakingly taking them apart, all these little, intricate working mechanical parts to it. It blew my mind, you
It's
know.
it's pretty crazy. Like I don't think my mind works like that
No.
that organized. Like I would I'd set my arm down and wind up with a gear on my stuck to my skin and then like leave it on the floor somewhere and then try
Yeah,
to that would be me. Like
right, right. Yeah, but it's just wild. I'm detail oriented, but not that detail
yeah.
oriented. I can't. Yeah, my mind just jumbles when I see all that stuff.
You ever watch that Baumgartner guy, the guy that does art restoration?
Maybe.
I'll send you a link to him. He he made yeah, he does some pretty serious art restoration, and one I was watching, he made his own artisanal Q-tip, and I lost my mind. I was like, you fancy fucker, making your own Q-tips. Come on.
Yeah,
And it was
yeah,
like it was I use Q-tips, like I throw five away before I even start. I'll take five out and throw them directly into the garbage before I even start using Q-tips. I use so many, but the idea that he's gonna get get his own Q-tips made, come on, come on. But yeah, that stuff that there's a lot of it's interesting how many different things like that there are when you watch them. You get inspiration for stuff in guitars, like his you
it's
know
motivational, right?
it
It's
is, it is.
kind of like it makes me look at myself and like reevaluate like my skill set and my knowledge, and it's just like you need to get your shit together, you know?
Yeah, yeah, like sometimes I wonder if I could have reached a little higher, but whatever. Yeah,
Well, dude, I tell you what, your finish touch ups as good as I've ever seen. You know,
I've seen one guy that's better, but it drove him. I think it drove him crazy. So I don't know. I
is
don't
that
know
the
if
guy that taught you?
no, no, it's a guy. I didn't work with him at Gruns, but it was a guy that was there, and he did some real crafty stuff. But he kind of went down a little bit of a dark path because of it, I think. Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, there's like a cutoff in certain worlds. I don't want to get into, like, I worked at Gruns and I worked on some really high end instruments, but I was insulated because I was at Gruns, so I didn't have to deal with any of the people that were attached to him,
yeah,
and I have a real hard time with that world. For me, like the type of person that's attached to a $50,000 guitar and me, we don't have a lot in common
yeah.
on
No,
a lot.
that's absolutely tough. Managing the customers and yeah, and managing someone that's not even in your fucking realm.
Yeah.
Like, I do this, I get into a little bit of that with some of these, arch top
Hmm.
restoration and refinishes, and you're dealing with guys that spent 20 grand on fucking Manhattan or something.
Hmm.
You know, it's hard to relate. It's just hard to relate to guys like
It's
that.
it's hard to relate. Like a lot of them are just fine or whatever, but there's something the pay for, at least for me and my stuff, the pay for taking on some of those headache jobs, it doesn't scale proportionally to the headache of the job. Like
Yeah,
it seems like they're always more trouble and more than they're worth. And my days of being fascinated guitars and just wanting to work on really nice guitars to kind of have the ego boost of being around them is I'm not there anymore. But
Yeah, yeah. I just I just want a paycheck.
that's what I want too. And honestly, like working on bread and butter guitars for guys, and doing all the all the same repair, but just on guitars that you don't have to you know have to like
Fucking sweat
second.
'em.
Yeah, you just don't have to second guess yourself on every move you make.
Yeah,
Like, am I, like, can I take this little bit of finish off over here to blend this in? Like it's not even a question to blast the whole area off, paint something, and shoot new finish on it. Like it.
yeah,
That's one thing that's hard for me is sometimes I get kind of that the two worlds thing kind of collide, and I'll get like hung up on a project thinking about it as though it's a vintage instrument and it's not, and I could have just done something radical, and it would have turned out better, and
yeah,
I wouldn't have had to worry about it. So you want to take a look at some of your stuff? You want to take a look at
yeah,
the
yeah.
shop and give me a little shop tour?
Yeah, we can do it. Let me get this
You
pulled
got
up.
you got some kind of grioche over there on your bench?
What's that?
I see like a Gretsch orange over there or something. Is that
Oh no, it's just this is from a builder. Can you see me?
yeah,
This is from a builder up in Vancouver Island, actually. The
yeah,
guy I worked for at Benedetto, his name's Wyatt Wilkie. He's an arch top builder. This is a little 16-inch, little arch top
cool.
that I just actually did this little burst
Oh,
on
that's
yesterday,
nice.
and got it all scraped out. It's got some real nice quilt rims and back on it. But I've worked on that one and this one. So he sent me two arch tops, pretty much same color.
Uh huh.
This is I think this is a 16 and a half. But yeah, real nice build quality. He's doing the typical arch top thing, European spruce and European maples. And,
Yeah.
those guys are real funny. They want the European stuff.
Has anybody sent you any kind of build that's so bad that you had to be like, like I don't feel like I feel like I would have a hard time charging money to finish this nonsense, or
That's a tough part of my job, right? Because yeah, I mean, we're not all built the same.
yeah.
Not all the guitars are built the same. The build quality is definitely across the board. But no, I haven't actually turned anyone away. I think one time I sent a guitar back to a guy because it was so poor that I just couldn't. There's file marks all in it. But none of the binding joints were tight. It was really just a mess. And I sent that one back, and I hadn't heard back from that guy, and that was about 5 years ago.
So
and
that's kind of an interesting avenue of thought there. We used to, I don't know if you had this in any of the factory situations, but there was a lot of tension between the body department and the finish department because like
oh,
whose responsibility was it to sand these things out? So when you get a guitar and it's rough, are you going back over it and making sure it's
I
nothing's
have to.
cross grain? Or
I have to.
so do you get paid for that, or
Yeah,
you tack
I
it on
have.
the bill?
Yeah, I charge my hourly rate for prep.
Yeah.
Uh, so in my base price, I pretty much got about a half hour to an hour just kind of baked
Hmm.
into that cost of just going along and cleaning everything up, making sure all the edges are broken, nothing's real sharp, and all the binding and all those joints are tight and filled. Um, but once I get outside of an hour, man, I have to start charging, because it really slows me down when I get guitars in that aren't ready.
Yeah.
If I like these two arch tops that I got from
Hmm.
Y, those things I opened them up and I passed the light over them and they were ready to go. So I was
Yeah.
able to put them in the bent or put them in the booth and start to get sealer on them that day. So I can just keep going. But when I have stuff that needs to be reworked and file marks and cross grain scratches that have to get out, it really does slow me down. So And it's something that I'm constantly on about all these guys, you know. So I get the first guitar in, I'll go over them, I'll give them all the feedback, and it's a learning curve, as much for me as it is for them, because
Yeah.
I'm also trying to learn, you know, what they want,
Yeah.
you know, what they expect. And all these guys are different, and you know, you're trying to cater to all of them because you know, you spend 200 hours building the guitar and you ship it down to Georgia, you're going to want to know what's going on with it, you
Yeah.
know, and have input. So it's, you know, that's a big part of my job is just, you know, maintaining that communication with the builder and, you know, just making sure that I'm delivering on, you know, what they want.
Are any of your guys, are they advertising like finish by Matt Eady, or are
Some
they
of them,
some of them?
I would say the majority of them are.
Yeah.
The majority of them are. You know, there's a handful of guys that I do, you know, some guys I don't do all their finished work. You know, I got a couple of customers that do their own finished work, but you know, they'll hire me when they get really busy. You
Yeah.
know, when they just can't get them through finishing, they'll you know, send me some over. Um, but but yeah, yeah.
Cool. All right. So what do you got over there?
Bunch of stuff that's going to be going into finishing pretty soon. Um, got a lot of these classical builds.
Hmm.
It's a builder up in Massachusetts named Steve Connor. He builds some real nice classicals. But
Cool.
we masked the tops off because he still hasn't converted the classical guys to having nitro on the tops. So he still likes to do a French polish on the top.
Okay.
Sound
Do you do the any of the French polish, or are you
I
no?
don't.
Have you ever messed around with it?
Yeah, I have with repair work for sure. You know, it's really nice for doing little quick repairs on guitars, but no, it's just something that I've never really focused on or really had a need to focus on.
Yeah.
So it's really just a necessity thing, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah, I mean these are all just ready to get, you know, go into finishing. Um, so yeah, and they pretty much all come like this, you know. Just
So are those Indian rosewood back and sides, or is that
these two classicals are Brazilian.
okay?
These two are Brazilian. This one is an Indian rosewood, and I'm not sure what this guy is. I haven't. I'll have to look at the spec sheet and see.
Are you pour filling those
Yes,
yeah?
I am. I am. Yep.
And what
Yep.
what
Um,
what are you using for do you mind if I ask your secret recipes, or
yeah, yeah, no doubt. I use paste filler. You know, I know that a lot of people don't like paste filler because they say it shrinks. Um, I think they all shrink. I hadn't found a paste filler or a waterborne filler that's really, really good. You know, they all are going to sink a little bit. But I really like it just for the workability of it. You know,
Hon-
it's really nice to work with.
honestly,
Um,
like I like the look of sunken. I mean, from a vintage aesthetic,
yeah,
that pour filled look where it just kind of subtly sinks into the grain. Like to me,
mhm,
that looks
it was
like thin finish. Like when you start doing finish that doesn't sink, it starts to almost kind of have that UV finish look where it's just kind of
nice.
like ensconced. But
Yeah, yeah.
so are you using a oil based pour filler, or
I am. I am.
where are
Uh,
you getting that from?
a couple of different places. I've been using the Chemcraft from LMI.
Hmm.
I really like that stuff, but you know, oddly enough, I tried to find some just the other day on their website and I couldn't locate it, so I'll have to go back and see. But are you familiar with the Chemcraft?
I'm not. Are they? I'm trying to think. They aren't what McFadden turned into, are they?
I'm not sure. I think McFadden turned into I can't think of the
Is it
company's name.
Seagrave?
Seagraves, that's it.
Seagraves? Okay.
Seagrave Biker.
Yeah,
Um,
Chemcraft. I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, it's really nice, man. It's really nice. The workability of it. I mean, it's great. It's the best paste filler I've used.
Really? Okay.
Mhm.
And it's oil based, so it would
It
work
is.
well in oil based repair.
Yep, yep, absolutely. So I use the Chemcraft, and then I've also used this Sherwin-Williams.
Really?
It's Sherwood.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Sherwood. And this stuff, there's the number on it
Yeah.
if you can find it.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find. They only have it out in Las Vegas, I guess,
Yeah.
in one of their chemical coating divisions over there. Um, but it's really nice. It's just a good oil-based pore filler. And this is the one that I keep. I get it in a natural, and I use these universal coloring tints. This cow tint
Yeah.
two.
Who's that?
I use
Who's that from?
cow tint two. Let's see. I think I bought this stuff. Hell, I got it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. If you search it, there's a bunch of companies, and I actually think that Homestead Finishing
Yeah.
carries it as well. Yeah, so the same guys that make that trans tint.
So, do you think that's their color tone pigment as well? Because I know Homestead's selling uh, the
Oh,
the StuMac color tone is like their Homestead's rebranded one
man,
of
it
those.
might be. It might be.
Do they have separate pigments in that Cal tint for water based versus lacquer based?
Well, this is a universal coloring tint, so I think you can use
Oh, okay.
this for tinting latex, alkyd, acrylic, PVA.
Okay. That might be something else then.
I'm not sure about waterborne now.
Okay.
I haven't tried to use it in anything
Yeah.
waterborne.
I'm getting
Um,
a lot of banding from
oh,
your light, yeah.
there we go. Sorry.
So that's cool. So you're mixing your own portfolio. Do you have like if you were looking at like a little bit of rosewood and you were like I'm selecting a color for this, is there like a specific kind of variance in the wood that you would look for to kind of judge what color you're mixing to, or do you just kind of
Man, I'll tell you, I have just gone with black.
okay.
That's the only every time I've tried to mix anything that's a brown or dark brown, it always seems to jump out.
Yeah.
It looks a little lighter than the wood.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a bad look. I just think of
Yeah.
the 70s pancake body Les Pauls with that
Ex-
pine filler in it.
Yeah.
And I hate that look. So I'm always kind of erring on the side of just darker.
Dark, yeah.
Yeah. So, pretty much all the rosewoods, I use a black filler. So to get the black, I use I use this cow tint, the filler,
Uh-huh.
right? And then LMI, they sell, I think it's just carbon,
Yeah.
and it's a powder. So it's a solid. And I just add this into my dark walnut filler with a little bit of lamp black liquid pigment. And that's the only thing I've found to give me a real black filler,
Yeah.
because everything else kind of almost had a carbon kind of gray look to it on like the real dark Brazilians and that dark chocolate.
Yeah.
It just, nothing ever matched it.
Yeah.
And you put black in it and it looks great and you don't even really notice it.
That's good. That's good stuff. That's good
Mhm.
stuff. Yeah. It's those rosewoods, even though, because they're not like as open pore as mahogany, I think they're almost more challenging to pore fill well
Absolutely.
because it's hard to see, it's kind of hard to see what you've done, like did you get all the pores, like, but also yeah. But so are you putting, so the lamp black, do you think that's transferring a little bit of dye to the seal coat too, and kind of giving that a little bit more color?
Depending on how much you seal the wood, yeah, but I think that there's a little bit of staining even on top of that sealer coat,
Yeah.
right? There's a little bit, but if you give it a couple of coats of sealer before you put your filler, and then by the time the filler is dry and you Scotch Brite it off, it usually cleans up pretty damn good.
Yeah.
You know,
How long are you waiting before you remove the pore filler?
they say you're supposed to do 72 hours.
To
But
remove or to
if I'm in a rush, 2 days is fine.
yeah.
Yeah. But when I was at the custom shop, we waited, I think, a day, and we never had laminate issues or anything
Yeah.
delaminating from that stuff.
Yeah, we
So
did. We were doing McFadden's at Breedlove, and we'd wait a day. Boy, and
yeah,
I hate to say this, but sometimes when the NAMM show was coming up, we'd push it we'd get some coats on at
don't
the end of the
say
day.
it. Yeah,
I wonder where those guitars are now. Those are probably those guitars that you can strip the finish by getting compressed air underneath of it. You ever seen guitars
yeah,
like that where
right.
you just take it, strip it right down with an air nozzle?
Yeah, I've done a couple of Tacomas like that.
Oh, they drove themselves out of business with that nonsense.
Yeah, yeah, that
I
was a
think they got
freaking
I think they got sold a bill of goods. My takeaway was they got sold a bill of goods on UV, something part of their UV process. They were they when you look at that, like every time I've been able to do that with somebody's finish, you can always see the seal coat has not seen any kind of abrasion at all.
no
Like it
scuffing.
no
Yeah, they
no
don't scuff
scuffing.
it up.
I'm like, man, you had some rookie at the beginning of the process. It was like, I know how to save time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I always tell people, anytime you're putting new material on or you're layering new lacquer and the stuff's cured up,
Yeah,
even for a day, I at minimum I'm hitting it with some Scotch Brite
yeah,
and sometimes some 320, just because those delamination problems can
yeah.
they can
Nitro.
ruin you. They can ruin you.
Nitro, I put like in repair. I'll put if it's over a day, then I usually go to 600, and then I do a light coat or retarder over the whole thing before I shoot my next thing, just to kind of loosen it up a little bit. But yeah, lacquer is not like, I mean, yeah, it chemically adheres or whatever, but depends. Like, did you shoot on a real dry day? Like,
Right.
did all your flow out solvents evaporate off immediately? Then you're gonna have an issue.
Yeah, you got to be careful with it. You got to be careful. But
But
yeah, once I get the filler on and it's dry 2 days, I pretty much just go right to the Scotch Brite, that maroon Scotch
yeah,
Brite, and just go over them real good, and that pretty much cleans up all that residue or and the majority of the stain in that steel coat. It pretty much gets most of that stuff out.
you ever use the red Scotch Brite that's got the hook and loop so you can throw it on a Dynabraid?
No, but you told me about that
Oh
one
man,
when I met you up there in Ohio, and I've actually been looking at some. I just hadn't pulled the trigger and bought any.
it's so uptown. It's really like you can actually like you can leave the pore fill on pretty crusty and then come back and like almost like do leveling with it. You can really like
Yeah,
hog it off with that. So
yeah, I know. I gotta get one.
you're letting your pore filler get, you don't like let it gas off and then wipe it off and then let it sit, or do
Yeah,
you?
yeah. So,
Okay.
so, so usually what I do is I've got like a squeegee, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll pull it in all directions
Mm-hmm.
across the pores, and then I pretty much just squeegee off the surface, and then I might give it 15 seconds to just barely start to cloud over,
Mm-hmm.
where you start kind of seeing it setting up or flashing off,
Mm-hmm.
and then I clean it up. I actually clean it off of the guitar with burlap.
Yeah.
So that's what I use to clean it off, and then I use the Scotch Brite the following day, or whenever I'm getting ready to seal that filler up. That's when I'm coming in with the Scotch Brite and really scuffing that up and getting it cleaned up.
What kind of what kind of Oh my God, I lost my train of thought. I had a really good question. Oh, what kind of viscosity are you? Do you thin your pore filler with like naphtha or mineral
Yeah,
spirits, and
yeah.
what kind of viscosity are you looking for when you're?
Somewhere between pancake batter and frosting.
So pretty pretty, like not necessarily on the watery side, but definitely on the watery side of what I've seen. I've seen people put it on real thick.
Yeah,
Um,
I just don't like it real thick.
yeah,
It's just hard to work with, and I feel like it doesn't want to get packed into the pores
yeah. There's
either.
that. Plus you spend a lot of, like, if you're doing production, like, you spend a lot of money on pore filler putting it
Oh
in
yeah.
that thick.
I mean, when we were at Gibson, that's the first time I'd ever seen, oil-based pore fillers. The guys there, man, they put it on with like a cheap paintbrush. They would dip this paintbrush and just
Yeah,
do all this, and then just come back behind it right away, aggressively with just flannel rags.
yeah.
That's all they did.
I see
You know.
that. I see that a lot when I'm touching up. I see a lot, and that was like, I think that was pretty much Gibson in a lot of different eras. You get that kind of that splotchy look where there's like clearly like some some big sections of thick paste fill got left behind, and it makes this kind of look. And boy, if you're not sensitive to that, like, you can get some really sad looking touch ups by not kind of replicating that look with the projects, because that's the look.
That is the
That's
look.
that's
That is the look.
splotchy, crazy. Yeah, that's another thing in touch up I look for too. Is like, if I see like a lot of cross grain nonsense in the wood, I know they didn't seal very well before they pour filled, because that's a real indication that it sucked it up. Or if it sucked up a lot of dye, the wood will take up a lot of dye.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's
Well, especially the guitars from the custom shop with that aniline dyed filler.
Yeah,
That stuff bleeds, and it's a mess.
yeah.
But
You ever you ever mess around with that? So Dan actually hit me to that who is that? Who makes the dyes in the yellow packets? Who was that? I forget, but they have an oil based dye that's
is
supposed
that
to
the
be.
one he was using when we were up there?
It could be. It could be. I got to get the name of that again, because I think that's like on a lot of those, like, getting that they still make that. If I think if you dump that into natural pore filler, I think you get real close to some of those old Gibson
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I can't remember what it was. Never mind. I don't want to give away the secret anyway. So I'll find it out and tell you privately.
All right. Sounds good.
Let's see here. So it's 2:25. We're actually only at basically about half an hour away from this stream deal, but we've basically spent about an hour talking about pore filler.
No? Really?
No, we've spent a half an hour talking about pore filler.
Hey, hey, we're going deep, man. We're
It's
going
a
deep.
it's a deep dive. It's a
Yeah.
totally deep dive. Like, that's I think that a lot of that stuff, like, you can get. Have you ever looked at like Dresner's book and stuff? He's got some good information on
Michael Dretzner is, in my opinion, the most knowledgeable person that I've ever had a conversation with about chemical coatings.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, he's a wealth of information.
yeah. His wood finishing book, like, it really, like, because I basically took over the finish department at Breedlove without really knowing much of anything. Like, I knew how to spray, I knew how to, like, I knew kind of the mechanical end of it, but I had no idea how any of the. And you'd be surprised, like, when you call Mohawk, or back then it was McFadden, or you call these places that are making it, they have no idea what they're making. Like, you ask them like questions about, like, I'm getting this problem, and they're like, have you tried turning your gun upside down, or just
Well,
like.
well, the problem is that one, they're manufacturing lacquer for cabinet guys.
Yeah,
And that's the only application that they ever really see it in. And I think that's the only way they even test it out either at their shop. They're not building up 8 coats, leveling it and buffing. They're not doing that. They don't,
yeah.
So it's just
they're certainly not trying to keep it under, 8 thousandths of
right.
finish thickness. Like that's yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's very frustrating when you start talking to the chemical guys, or it can be. And I specifically remember Mohawk being one that really was a source of a lot of frustration when I was at Benedetto. Those guys would change the formula up on something and then just deny it. And it's like, guys, I've been working with this lacquer for
Yeah.
10 years. It's not the same.
Well,
It looks different. And they're like, no, no, we haven't done anything different.
there's one other component to it too, which I found out at Breedlove, which is when you get your lacquer shipped to you. We got some lacquer shipped to us in the dead of winter one time, and it didn't get picked up, and it sat on a loading dock, at like 15
Uh,
degrees below for a night, and it was just that lacquer was. I can't even imagine where those guitars are at now, but we shot guitars that took hours to buff, and they never looked quite right, and they never got fully cured, and it was just a nightmare just from. But you had a few $1,000s worth of lacquer you had to get through. It's just the way it
yeah,
was.
yeah.
But
It's a crapshoot. I mean, because you call up the guys and you're like, well, I need y'all to tell me what's going on, and then usually it's like, well, you're the expert,
uh
and they're like, we would be calling someone like you to tell us, and it's like,
oh yeah.
so you're kind of left out there to dry a lot of times.
At Gruen's, we'd get the guy, the rep, come through from time to time, and he was one of those guys that would go out and actually do like the furniture touch up seminars where you go in and they got the markers or whatever,
Yeah,
and we'd tell him what we were trying to accomplish at Gruen's, and he's like, I mean, guys, honestly, you're using our products and you're doing stuff that we never really intended the products to do. Like,
right.
nobody's actually on a chair leg trying to make something that disappears from every angle, every
Yeah,
conceivable angle that
yeah,
and shining bright lights on it and stuff. Like, it's a chair leg, you know
yeah.
get it
Right,
brown.
right.
Maybe you feel fancy, put a couple grain lines in it with a pen, like, oh my God. Yeah, we tortured that poor guy. I kind of wanted to go to the Mohawk touch up clinic and just see what it was like, but
Man, I actually just was looking at an email recently from them that they were doing something. I guess it was maybe down in Florida. I'm not sure, but I talked to one of the guys. Gosh, I can't remember his name. He came up to Dan's back in February, and he had just done a Mohawk course,
hmm
and he said it was pretty cool.
yeah,
Obviously, is completely focused on furniture repair,
yeah.
but he said it was pretty helpful. I've considered it as well. You know,
It's just a little pricier than I'm willing to do
yeah,
just for what is it, like $300-400, something like that.
yeah, I think about 400 bucks.
That's that's
But I
like
think you get like their full touch up kit.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, they it's a little pricey.
it is a little pricey. I always keep my eye out for those old kits too, because there's some like old formulas. There's some stuff in there that when you get it out, like, you realize this is exactly what Gibson was using back in the day. Because when you put it on, it's no screwing around. It just lines right up. Like, they
Yeah,
had a powder called transparent mahogany that when you use it on mahogany, it looks like those kind of magenta looking double O's from the 30s. Like, it's
yeah.
got and it's just no fucking around. You're just like, oh, I'm done.
That's a beautiful thing when you find something like that,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking forward to. I need to get on Craigslist and see if I can find some of those old Blendall kits or something. Maybe they're on eBay. I haven't looked at eBay in
I'm
a
not
long
saying
time.
people doing Craigslist still. I think I
Maybe.
think people are doing the Facebook Marketplace now. I think that's where
Is that
all
where
the
all
hip
the action
guys,
at? All the action is?
yeah, for all
Yeah.
that these days.
Yeah. I looked at Craigslist for something here recently. As I need a table because I'm getting a new area to do touch up at the house. I'm taking over one of the bedrooms, and I need a table, and I was like, boy, it's real spare on here.
Yeah.
What's going on here? I guess people are getting tired of getting murdered, at their
Yeah.
drop
Right.
offs.
Right. Right. Well, when they're doing it on the Facebook Marketplace, at least you can see the guy, you
Yeah,
know, and see
absolutely.
that he's holding the job down and he's just trying to, sell a little piece of furniture.
Yeah, it doesn't have that anonymous component. When Craigslist was going, I was like, they had to I thought about starting a little business based on having a Craigslist meeting place where you'd maybe have a little mechanics bay, like if somebody was selling a car, they could wheel it in and look at it or something, but have it brightly lit, where nobody's
Mhm.
going to get murdered for trying to sell a tchotchke or something.
Right, right.
But yeah, Craigslist. Yeah, it's interesting. Facebook. I haven't spent a lot of time on Facebook Marketplace. I might have to check that out.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah. So let's do I got about a half an hour before the live stream. You want to do a little show and tell around the shop, and
Yeah,
you want
yeah,
to you we kind of started that, and I got interested in talking about pasteful for a half an hour.
yeah. I got you excited. All right, so
Where
yeah,
do
I've
you
got about. Huh?
do you have a customer area where customers come in and you kind of keep them from the back, or do customers walk in and just come right in? You
I'm just in an old. It was actually a Seven Up Snapple building.
Yeah.
So I just got this is just my front door,
Uh huh.
So I mean, I don't have much in here. It's just just my little area where you
Uh
come
huh.
in.
So is that a
Um,
little check-in table right there to
yeah,
the right?
yeah, just some stuff I can throw some stuff on a bench, and then I've got a little area. I've got a daughter,
Uh huh.
so she comes up here and she can hang out. I got some amplifiers in here. We can test stuff out,
Uh huh.
you know. And then I got an area where I got all my repair stuff lining up, waiting for me, and cases and shipping boxes for finishing stuff.
So
That's
you're a full service repair shop for your community, correct?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I do. Yep. So I pretty much got this area. This would have been like the original office space in this building.
Uh huh.
Um, so I rented this, and then I rented it's probably about 800 square foot in this main room that I work out of.
Okay.
Um, and this is pretty much where everything happens, you
Okay.
know. And then over here in the back, I've got a little buffing area. So this is where, everything. I've got a little downdraft table over here.
Can I
Uh,
see that? You build that yourself?
yeah, it's a back downdraft I built. Um, I wouldn't advise someone to build it like this again, but I've got these, so I've got all these PVC pipes. You can
Oh,
see
okay.
them. All right. So, and they just they just got a little bit of room in between them so that air can go down
Yeah.
the bottom.
I've never seen that solution. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a pain to do it like this, but so I got that, and then so you can lift up the table, right?
Uh huh.
And I've got my two filters,
Okay.
and then I've got one of those squirrel cage fans on the bottom that's drawing air.
Can I see? You got like a greenhouse fan, or?
Oh, I can hear. Let me give me one step. Let's see. Let me just sit this up, and I'll pull a filter out so you can see. All right, you there?
Yeah.
All right, so I've just got the filter sitting down in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah,
I've just got that guy down in there.
yeah.
And I've just got a hole cut into the bottom of this box down there, and it's just blowing out clean air
Okay.
up under it. So, you
Yeah.
pretty nice. I gotta have it.
So what? Well, yeah. I mean, you're not gonna like run a dust collector everywhere, right? And try to take it up in a dust collector. Which Dynabraids are you using, by the way?
What's that now?
What are your sanding implements on there? Are you using Dynabraid propers, or are they?
This is the Dynabraid I've got.
Yeah.
I don't know what model it is.
I heard recently they changed it so you don't need god awful much CFM to run them. Is that true? Do you require a big compressor to effectively
I
run that?
do. I do. That was one of my big purchases going in business. I had to get a two-stage air compressor instead of a single stage,
Yeah.
just because of the consumption of air.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. You're probably familiar, but maybe your guys, you got your single stage compressor with your single piston.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes up, and then when it pushes down, that's when it's compressing air. The two-stage compressor, the piston pumps air on the up and down stroke. So it's double the air.
Yeah.
So it can keep up with that, the Sanders, because it just constantly draining my air.
We had a giant compressor at Breedlove, and speaking of rivalries between departments, body department and finish department would always be yelling back and forth.
Yeah.
Fucking knock it off with your sanders. We gotta sand the finish in here. Oh, we gotta sand bodies in here. Like it just was. There was never enough CFM, but yeah, that's the difference between those cheap Home Depot compressors. Although you can get a high CFM compressor at Home Depot too. But yeah, when you wonder why a compressor costs, why this compressor doesn't cost very much and this compressor costs an awful lot.
Right.
It's about them CFMs, I guess.
No doubt, no doubt. And they're nice for the littler ones are nice for nailers and stuff that don't demand the air. But when you're just holding that trigger down on that palm sander, it's consuming a lot of air. But the Dynabraid seems like it's a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I got two sanders actually that I use. I use the Dynabraid, and then I got this other one. This is an old cheapo. I probably spent $50 on it. But I use this one. See, it's got a big inch pad on it.
Yeah.
And it's really nice because it's got a lot of flex to it, right?
Yeah.
So on arch tops and stuff, I can, sand all that stuff.
Is that 3M paper on that, or is that
that's the Cubitron.
Cubitron.
Yeah, so I'll show you a box of it. It's the 3M Cubitron.
Yeah, I don't think we had Cubitron when we were still using what?
I've used the 3M Gold, just the standard, your standard gold roll.
Yeah.
I used that for a long time, and I was talking to another finisher, and 3M came out with this Cubitron, and it's incredible, man. It probably lasts twice as long as that yellow gold back stuff.
Yeah. What's your so what are your rub out grits before buffing? Are you rubbing like 1,000, 2,000 and then straight to the buffer? Or are you putting a lot of grits between you and the buffer?
I go 1,000 and then straight to the buffer.
1,000. That's some bold stuff.
Dude, when I was at the custom shop, take a guess at what grit they ended on.
I would guess they went 600 to the buffer.
400.
400 to the buffer. But I saw some video recently, and their red wheels were just nuts, man.
Gnarly.
You want to talk about more finish department? Like three guys using the same buffer. You want to hear some people getting angry with each other, hang around a buffer that's being used by three different guys.
Yeah.
Like every time anybody applied any compound, like all the eyebrows would go up and look over there like, do you think you're putting that on a little hard? I
mean that the setup that they've got, their whole finishing process kind of lends itself to that look, right?
Yeah.
It sinks. It's not, whatever. It's not what I can put out, right? But, their process for buffing, it's pretty freaking incredible. Even as wrong as it is, It's pretty incredible that they can do that, with that 400 grit. But they have those big machines and they got the variable motors on there, so they can dial those things back. I want to say when I was there, we were red wheeling stuff, and those wheels were probably turning around 600 RPM,
It's pretty
maybe.
slow.
Yeah, super low, super low. But the wheels were 8 to 10 inches wide.
Yeah, yeah.
They'd have those things stacked in there.
You could
Uh,
practically just dip the guitar into the wheel at that point.
yeah, yeah. You'd lean into it. I mean, you legit you had to put your weight into it and just
Yeah,
lay
yeah.
on top of it. It's actually a pretty damn dangerous job, especially when you get into those bigger pieces of machinery that got in those factories. There's all kinds of horror stories of guys getting sucked up into those wheels. Because if you're laying all your weight into them and you're rocking around on this wheel, and that wheel gets a little high
Yeah,
on the body, it's going to want to suck it in there. And it's that long, and that guitar is getting thrown into the ground.
yeah. The
If you're
first,
lucky, if you're lucky, if you try to hang on to it, you might get sucked in there.
yeah, we didn't buff anything with Nexon. When I look at that process of buffing even acoustics with Nexon, it looks nutso to me. Like
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
our
all I've ever buffed.
we had one speed at Breedlove, and I want to say I think it was 1700 RPM, and it
Yeah,
was might have even been faster than that, but it was a real wide wheel too. And
yeah,
I dropped the first guitar I tried to buff, I dropped it,
me too,
and
me too.
I never dropped another one after that, and it was really inexplicable how it happened. I almost caught it with my toe, like I almost like hacky sack stalled it with my toe,
Yeah,
and I did. It like hung on my toe for a second, and then it rolled off onto the concrete. We had padding under it. Actually,
yeah.
if I hadn't have grabbed it with my toe, it probably would have just hit the carpet and been fine. But
Yeah, I haven't. Now, I lost maybe two or three when I was at the custom shop because, like I said, you know, I lost one. The first one I ever put on the wheel was like this old. It was like a Chet Atkins little carved top. What was it, like an L10 or something? I can't
hmm
remember. But it was just a little repair that I was doing, and I just jumped over there on the wheel and buffed something on the rim,
yeah,
and that wheel caught that thing and threw it in the ground, and it scared the crap out of me. And that's really what made me want to learn how to buff, just because I was so scared of it. And then now I don't feel comfortable on the buffing wheel unless it's got a neck on it,
yeah,
because I got a handle on it,
yeah. Yeah,
But
I suppose that seems right. It's whatever you came up with is probably you got the muscle memory for it. But the getting back to that thing with the guy in the finish department that was there before, like his thing with putting all newbies on pour filler. Like when I took over, I put all newbies on buffing because I was like, eventually you're gonna have to do it, and there's no preparation for it, and we're gonna find out right, like real quick whether or not you're gonna be here or not.
yeah,
Like if you can do that. But the other thing I could never get to any kind of way where guys were spraying their own buffs. That would have really sorted a lot of stuff out if I could have got it to where.
it really does. It goes back to what you were talking about the finishing guys and the hand sanding guys, and those two departments
Yeah,
always kind of being at odds with each other. That was something that I got to do when I got to Benedetto. Because when I got there, they had only been open for maybe a year or so in their Savannah facility. So that when they started hiring their workforce, they started in Whitewood, right? I mean, you got to start building jigs before you can build guitars.
hmm
You got to start milling stuff before you can start doing anything. So they kind of filled the workshop up starting at Whitewood and just moved down the line. And when I got hired there, they didn't have anybody for finish. They didn't have anybody for final assembly. They didn't have a buffer. They didn't have any of that stuff. All they had was everything leading up to finishing. Um, So that was really nice because again, I was doing all the finish work, and then I was also doing the buffing work. And early on, I even did a lot of assembly work for them as we hired and filled those positions. But yeah, it's nice when you're in a small shop, and if you're the guy doing the prep work and you're the guy doing the finishing and the buffing, you know where the problems are.
Yeah.
You can't just pass the buck on to somebody
Yep.
else. And there's definitely a lot of that going on in
Yep.
bigger shops.
It.
And I think that's in all industries too. That's not just us.
Yeah. No. That's the. We. When I was there, I definitely read a lot about manufacturing processes. Outside of guitars and stuff, and yeah, I called it the chain of incompetence because it really like if you've got an assembly line, like it just a problem at the beginning is going to be a problem at the end. Like it's just the nature of it. And I started out in string up, which was assembly, fretting, and getting it ready to go out the door, like dial in, we called it. And that's where like everything was like, like you're at the end of the process, so you're seeing stuff. One time, speaking of which, I got a guitar in, and I'd assembled it, I'd fretted it, and I was dialing it in, and it was at the dial in point that I noticed that it didn't have side dots on it. And I was like, and side dots are,
Yeah.
after the guitar is assembled, are a real pain in the ass to install.
Yeah. Just about impossible to do them right.
And I looked at it and I was like, it just dawned on me, like, because bodies and necks travel together then,
Uh,
and they travel together with a card, and so it had gone out of the neck department into the body department. The body department guy, like, because there was fitting of the neck or whatever, he did all that. Then it got into the finish department. Who knows how many times it touched hands and got inspected, rubbing it out, sanding it out between coats. Got all the way to the end of the process, to the end of my process, and then I'm like, oh, no side dots, huh? I took it to Kim Breedlove, who was doing final inspections at that point, and he looked at it and he was like, let's see if anybody notices. And we shipped it out. We shipped it out with no side dots, and nobody noticed. Or if they noticed, they didn't say anything. But at that point, I think Pete's strategy was to put dealers out of business by overloading them with guitars anyway. So it was
yeah.
a nutso job.
Yeah,
But
it's amazing what'll get by folks, when they don't really care about what they're doing.
or they're just going so fast. I mean, we were going. When I look back on what a day was like in string up and how I was getting it done, like getting back to that nut thing, I think my time study for nuts was probably right around 7 minutes, maybe 8 minutes from a square blank to on the guitar and at the right depth.
Hmm.
I mean, you're just cooking. You're cooking, and you're just you're building these little muscle memory tricks, and like I got a million of them I still use. Like I groom the bottom of the nut slot with the blank just by kind of using just quickly using the blank as a scraper and kind of like leaving little burnish marks in the bottom of the nut slot. Like that's my.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, those things. Yeah, I
So
when I.
because I find this to be somewhat rare. Everybody I talk to that does nut work, they all do it in like a little vise and do it off of the guitar. I have always made every nut I've ever made. I glue it in first, and then I'm doing all the work.
Well, that's definitely the Gibson way of doing it, is shaping it on the body. I can't do that, like, but I wouldn't do it in a vise, like. So my method for getting the sides true to the side of the neck is to sand it on a glass flat block and have some sticky sandpaper, and I got pretty good at that. This is where Matt and I took a break to answer live questions from my Patreon subscribers. I wanted to take a quick moment and plug my Patreon and detail exactly what it is you get for $3 a month. Have you ever seen anything on this channel or on my Instagram which you have a question about? Every month we get together for 2 one-hour Q&A sessions. You can ask me anything pertaining to guitar repair or construction. These live streams also frequently have special guests such as Dan Earlywine or Matt Eady. You also get access to my Patreon posts. There are regular luthier tips and discussions, as well as some special interest content such as our 3D Club. The 3D Club is a group working together to learn 3D printing, 3D modeling, and eventually probably CNC and apply it to guitar repair. Give it a look. Patreon bills on the first of the month, so if it isn't your cup of tea, you can cancel before you're billed. Thanks for watching, and here's the second part of the interview with Matt Eady. All right, so we're doing day 2 of talking with Matt Eady, and Matt, I wanted to ask you kind of how you got going in this. Did you go to school, or did you just kind of jump into it? And
I did. I attended the Summit Guitar Building School on Vancouver Island in
mm-hmm.
British Columbia back in 2003, and did a year up there, and then did a short internship in a repair shop in Umeå, Sweden. After that,
Mm-hmm.
worked there for about 6 weeks and just kind of got my feet wet in a repair shop, just kind of the day-to-day hustle of it. And once I got done with that, moved back to the States, back down to Georgia, did repair work off my kitchen table for 6 months and could barely keep money in my pocket. And then just decided to go to Nashville and ended up putting an application in with Gibson Custom Shop, and was fortunate enough to get a good gig there.
Yeah.
So, and then, I worked there for about 5 years, and then ended up taking a job down in Savannah, Georgia as the head finisher at that time, the new Benedetto factory, and then worked down there for about 5 years. And once I left there, I came up here to Athens, Georgia, and opened my own shop. And been doing that since 2000. I think I signed my first lease in 2011.
Okay.
So,
what years were you at the custom shop?
I got hired on there, I think in 2005. I think it was either 2004. Yeah. It might have been 2004, actually.
Was Phil Jones there when you were working there? Or?
Phil Jones. Phil Jones.
I bet that would been a long time. He was just going out of Gruens when I was just starting at Gruens. He was just leaving.
That name sounds really familiar. I'm remembering now that we did have a guy that worked for George, but I don't know if it's the same guy. It's been a long time.
He might have floated in and out of there a couple times. Just he's kind of a legacy player there at Gibson. But so what was your experience like? I've heard some pretty horrific tales from Gibson. Were you happy to work there, or was it as miserable
I was
as?
happy to work there. When I was there, I was young. I didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a wife, didn't have kids.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't mind putting in the extra hours. But I think if you're a family man, it could probably be tough, because I was probably working on average about 55 hours a week. Pretty much every Saturday. I think they'd give us one Saturday off a month, but it was all about the numbers, man.
Yeah, the numbers, and they always my experience with working in a factory was the numbers always seemed to slide. Even if you figured out how to make the numbers, there'd be new numbers to get to it.
Oh yeah. You never had.
I mean, it was funny. I went into management basically because I was determined to figure out how we were going to have Saturdays off. And like every time I figured anything out where we would save some time or get some efficiency or whatever, the guy that was running the place would just go, "Oh, that's very nice. Here's some more things to do. Here's some new numbers," and it would lead to like more Saturdays. Ugh.
Yeah.
We got to get ready for the NAMM show.
That's right.
Yeah. That was even back when there was only one NAMM show for a little while. It was still.
Yeah.
It was still.
I mean, I mean, it's tough working in, that kind of factory. There it was very strict, as far as like being on time
Yeah.
and all of that stuff. I mean, we had to clock in. We had those what are they called? Where you just swipe your badge
Yeah.
over the proximity card.
Yeah.
If you were late by a minute, you got a strike,
Yeah.
and they brought those strikes up come time for review. You
Uh-huh.
know what I mean? So that was tough. And I mean, hell, in the custom shop, it wasn't even as bad as, USA, because if you went down the road to USA, they were running two shifts there. And when I was there, they'd start putting counters on some of the machines.
Mm-hmm.
So, when the day shift got finished up, the night crew would come in. That guy that was coming to your station would see your numbers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can imagine what that would lead to.
So
Mhm.
what do you got behind you? What's the guitar on your bench back there? Is that one of yours,
Just
or is that?
a couple of guitars that I'm wet sanding. I got
Yeah.
one right here. You know,
Cool.
just a nice burst top, maple top. Yeah, I spend most of my days sanding, either wet sanding or dry sanding or palm sanding.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if I talked to you about it, but speaking of Husson Dalton, I did we already talk about that? Like I read an interview with them in Fretboard Journal, and one of the guys was like, I didn't know how much sanding was involved in building guitars. I was
He's
like,
good.
it's he's like, it's a lot of sanding, and I'm like, buddy, you really said something there, partner. It is it's just all sanding. Like,
You better learn to love it.
you better learn to love it. Yeah, it's almost like if you just took sandpaper and tried to sand a guitar directly out of a tree log or something, just like with nothing. Oh my god.
That's what it
Yeah,
feels like sometimes.
it does. How are your shoulders doing? We talked about your hands, but man, my shoulders are pretty. I got this shoulder right here. Not so good from all the sanding.
Yeah, I do have to watch it. It's kind of my shoulder, my back, kind of right where my shoulder blade
Yeah,
meets my spine in there. I get it from running the palm sanders,
yeah.
just doing the rims and just, and really just standing over stuff, just where you're bent over just enough to put the extra strain on your back.
So
Um,
I I've been dealing with back issues ever since Breedlove, and part of it was that the original Breedlove factory was set up by Steve Henderson, who was, I think, could have been a. I mean, he was pretty short, but he set everything up in there for him, and
all
yeah, the buffers were super low, and like low buffers are like that's a real back killer. But
yeah.
I read a thing in Fine Woodworking magazine about bench height, and it really set me straight. You definitely do not want to have your vertebrae doing that, you know, compressed on one side and loose on the other, like with your back in kind of a curve, because you're putting pressure on your disc, and like if you do it enough, you're gonna degenerate that disc. And like I've had a herniated disc probably, I'd say maybe 10 or 11 times now, and every time it's like I get to like crawl to the bathroom for about a week before I can actually walk again. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a week of laying on the floor and crawling to the bathroom.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. Yeah, I'm dealing with it now. I'm trying to be conscious of it. I'm trying to work on my posture when I'm on the buffing wheel, and I mean, it's tough. It's tough.
The thing the rule of thumb I use for benches is my belly button. That seems to be a good I bring the top of the bench up to, and everybody says they complain that my benches are obnoxiously high, but since I started doing that, and right now my bench is way lower than it should be, and I'm feeling it every day, but my ceilings are low, so I can't really raise it up, or I'll bang headstocks into the ceiling. But I'm figuring it out. I got to get back on a tall bench. You know,
Yeah, I might have to put some blocks on it and just try it out. If
Exactly.
it helps.
Exactly. At Breedlove, I went and I cut off some square steel tubing and put it under the legs on the downdraft tables and brought all the downdraft tables up pretty high. Downdraft
Hmm.
tables tend to be on the low side anyway. That wasn't really Steve's fault, but everything in that shop was set up for you know, he probably didn't even think about it. He's like, here's a bench, like.
Yeah,
But there
yeah.
was yeah, it's interesting. Some people sit when they work though, and I think that might help a little bit on certain jobs to be sitting, but I can't do it. Like I started working around hillbillies, and if they saw you sitting down while you were working, boy, they would
You
give
weren't
you a
working if you were sitting down.
what?
You weren't working if you were sitting down.
No, they'd come by. Well, looks like you found yourself a sit down job there. I just like it. I got tired of hearing it, so I just everything I did, I figured out how to stand while I was doing it. But
And I pretty much stand doing most jobs, but I mean, if I'm sitting down wet sanding, if I can get situated in a comfortable position,
mm-hmm.
it's better on my back if I can just sit in wet sand. If
Yeah,
I'm going to be parked there for a couple of hours going through a bunch of stuff, you know.
yeah. The wet sanding is one I might sit down for. The other one is grooming nibs off of frets. Like if
Oh
I
yeah,
if I detang a fret for a bound board and I got to sit down and file nibs, I sit down for
yeah,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
But there's not a lot else that I sit down for.
Yeah, me either. Me either.
So whose guitars are those with the sunbursts?
These two are from a builder, named Stephen Marchione.
Oh yeah.
Uh, yeah, he's over in Texas. He's in Houston, actually.
Uh huh.
He- He's a really damn good builder, and he's a good finisher too. He finishes most of his work, but from time to time, I mean, he's just busy as hell.
Yeah.
He's just really busy, and from time to time, when he gets a little bottleneck in finishing, he'll throw me over a couple of jobs to do for him to keep everything rolling.
Cool. That's a really nice fade you have on that one in the back there. You got a nice long fade.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It looks like the red's showing up a little more in the picture than it is, but yeah, it's real nice.
Yeah.
It's real. He's got some. His quality of build is just about as good as I've seen from anybody.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's getting crazy. Like one thing that like CNC, like the CNC generation, like one thing that everybody thinks about with CNC is they think about the robot cutting the neck out, profiling the neck or whatever. But really,
Hmm.
I mean, that's interesting or whatever. But like honestly, a lot of those tasks could be better done or more quickly done on shapers and just as more efficiently and probably just as good. But where the CNC thing has really brought all of the games up is the templates, man. Like all of the jigs and everything. Like you get a form or you get it, you get it laid out in CNC, and then you make your jigs based or in CAD, and then you get your jigs based off the CAD, and it's like everything is lining up now. But there's still stuff that doesn't help, and you know, if you can't do the basic woodworking, then the CNC isn't going to save you.
Right. Well, and it's again, it's about the fit and finish and that plating surface. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's what it's about. But yeah, the quality of work across the industry is getting really high. I feel like, and the expectations from the buyers are getting pretty almost unrealistic. You know what I mean?
yeah. I started my apprenticeship was done in a place where the guy was just coming online as a Santa Cruz dealer, and we were all blown away, like looking inside the guitar. Like look inside the guitar. There's no glue squeeze out, and oh my god, like now customers are looking inside their guitars. What are you looking inside your guitar for? Like it's it's a double edged sword. I mean, yeah, qualities get is cool, but getting back to that balance sheet of a guitar manufacturer, there's it's not a great balance sheet. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everybody thinks, oh, $4,000 guitar. Boy, you guys must be getting rich building guitars. And there's all that sanding,
There's all that sanding. That's right. That's right.
hours and hours of sanding and squinting, all the squinting.
Yeah,
Ah.
yeah.
So what do you, speaking of squinting, so your inspection process for finish, I know you got like some pretty hard lights over there. Are you all daylight bulbs all the time, or are you what do you
Man, I bounce them around. I've got some LEDs in here, and some fluorescents, and I've also got incandescent bulbs in here as well. So, I might come in here when I'm inspecting stuff that's in the white. I might come in here and cut off all my lights except for, one of these like little, bench
yeah,
light and just pass it across it. Just
get
I
the
can just
get the shadows of the cross grain stuff?
right, right, right. That stuff just pops out when you just have one light on. And when I'm buffing, man, I honestly I look at them in all kinds of different lights.
Yeah.
I'll look at it under the incandescent light bulb. I'll look at it under the LEDs, and then the last one is to look at it just with natural sunlight,
Yeah.
because all those lights pick up different scratches.
They
You
do.
know, that I mean, I can look at something in the incandescent bulb and it'll look perfect. It'll look like it's showroom ready, and then you bring it out and you look at it in the sun, and you just see all those little
Yeah.
thousand grit scratches from the sander that just the light just doesn't pick up. And that's something that Michael Dresner, we were talking about that in a group fairly recently, and he was saying something about the wavelengths and the way your eyes see way deeper than I knew about.
Yeah,
But yeah, he was basically just saying that you need to look at under all kinds of different bulbs.
we
You know,
had we had high pressure sodiums that were pretty crazy in the finish department, and they were all the same except for one. And this one light, like I wouldn't let anybody inspect under it. I was like, because you'd never be finished.
yeah,
It
yeah,
just like it showed off everything, and you're looking at it in these like other crazy high pressure sodium, like crazy bright, crazy true lights,
hmm
and then you take it under this other light, and it was like it was just you just yeah
perfect.
the yeah it's the light thing, it never ends. It really gets me in the touch up stuff too. Like I'm pretty
Yeah.
particular about the light
Well,
and
I remember you talking about that specifically, like when you're doing touch ups, you better be doing under a natural light,
yeah.
because it can look real good when you're doing it under an incandescent bulb, and then you put it in the daylight and it's just staring you in the face.
It's pretty crazy. Like even the daylight, like for I don't know, for a long time I was like trying to touch up in daylight, by a window, and then I found out that like the sun is giving you different colors based on the time of day too. So like if you're touching up at the end of the day, even if the sun isn't coming down, if you're not even sunsetting, just at the end of the day, it's going through like more atmosphere or something like that, and giving you a redder look, almost an incandescent look.
Hmm,
It's
hmm.
so I quit that, and actually I usually block windows off if I'm touching up. I'll get almost all LEDs now. But
Hmm.
well, Matt, can you think of anything else we should talk about? Do you want to spend another half hour talking about pore filler or?
Filler? I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Well, I think we should do another one of these because I imagine that we probably would, and the world of finishing is pretty. It's pretty crazy, man. It's
It is, and there's a lot of people out there telling everybody how to do it, and I see a lot of misinformation going around.
it seems like it, and yeah, like we were talking before, a lot of that misinformation comes directly from the suppliers of the lacquer. I just heard somebody was telling me that Cardinal says don't use shellac under Cardinal lacquer. Have you heard anything about that?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you use
You can use,
what are you using? Are you using Cardinal or?
yeah, I use Cardinal. Um, so the problem with the shellac under the Cardinal, you know, some people were thinking that the Cardinal wasn't sticking or adhering to the shellac, but that's not true. What was happening is that if you were, pulling like a 2 pound cut of shellac and sealing up the tops of your guitars and getting it in that corner around the fingerboard extension,
Yeah,
and you getting a heavy build in there, what would happen as the when you put the cardinal on it, that stuff cures up so hard that
yeah.
it was actually pulling the shellac out of the corners,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So it would get lifted and you would have this like halo, matrix where it's all just pulled up from the corners.
I
So
think
it's not an adhesion problem with the cardinal, it's an adhesion problem with the shellac
so.
more so.
So guys, we're going with extra heavy cuts and trying to like almost like fill spruce with that.
Yeah, I mean, because for my entire finishing career, I have used shellac as a barrier coat, specifically on spruce. Because I'm sure you've seen it being factories, especially at Breedlove. You can get these little pitch marks and little sap lines
Yep.
that will pop up, and it won't ever allow that lacquer to cure over them.
Yeah.
You can drop fill them, you can build up, you can level, and give it a day, and it's going to sink back.
Yep.
So I always use shellac to seal that up, and I never had any problems with it. But then, when I got on with Cardinal, I started hearing some stories about it and kind of experimented with it and definitely saw a problem with it because I did a lot of guitars for other guitar builders that were having problems, so they would send them to me and I'd have to strip them and redo them. And, it was evident that they had shellac on them. And, I got a couple of other finishers that I talked to and we kind of bounce ideas off
Are you
of
on
each.
that? Are you on that Facebook group? The
Yeah.
yeah.
The one with
What?
Bo,
What?
the one that Bo curates.
Is he
Yeah.
curate that one? I'm not gonna say who it is because it's kind of a closed meeting, but yeah, I think I saw somebody post on that specific issue about the finish checking and the along the fingerboard extension. The
Yeah, it just lifts it out of the corners. That's really where the problem. I mean, if it was just on, the top and that's it, and it's kind of light, you're not going to have problems with it. But
so it's
what I
so it's not a chemical issue between shellac and cardinal. It's just more of that like infinite number of variables in the finish department. Oh my
yeah,
god.
and it's you can probably do it and be fine if you're watching and not letting that stuff get built up in the corners or sanding it out real good if you get that heavy build. But for me, it's just an unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen firsthand the problems that it's caused, and
So you're not using shellac under cardinal, correct?
I
You
do
know,
not.
you know, I used when I was there. We used the McFadden's vinyl wash coat,
Hmm.
and I hand rubbed that vinyl wash coat on as
Oh,
my
really?
yeah as my seal, and I gotta
Uh-huh.
tell you, like hand rub shellac as the seal coat is incredible because it'll really make that chatoyancy pop out of the
Yeah,
wood.
yeah,
Um, but that vinyl wash coat, I think it actually looked better hand rubbed on than, and we had zero issues with it. You would think with vinyl you'd have, but it was we were using catalyzed polyurethane over the top of it. But
yeah,
I'll tell you what, like on mahogany, when we hand rubbed that on versus spraying it on, chatoyancy popped, and then also no grain raising. Like you were like when you were rubbing it in, you were like Yeah,
down as
you were smashing it down, so we were able to get film thicknesses of the lacquer way down just based on switching to hand rubbing the wash coat on. And I'll tell you what, that we had a lot of problems in that finish department when I took over, and that move right there solved a lot of them. It solved a lot of
yeah,
them getting
I might need to try that, see how it works.
yeah. I mean, I think when I started, we were spraying sanding sealer, and boy, that I've never understood that stuff. Like I couldn't
I've never used a sanding sealer,
I
you know.
like it must be for like almost trying to get away from pore filler. Like you're using all of that high solid stuff is maybe going into the pores. But
Mm,
we had a lot of guitars at Breedlove when I started there that you could air hose strip. Like you could just get the nozzle underneath the finish and just strip all of it off in like 2 seconds just by blowing it off. So
no,
we're constant adhesion issues, and the sanding sealer was I feel like the source of it.
yeah.
And then when we switched to the hand rub and the vinyl wash coat, that was that. But yeah, the other thing that was pretty cool too. If I don't know if you do this, but we would we started when we were trying to make stuff like extra sharp because I'm pretty sure the McFadden stuff we were using had a lot of UV inhibitors in it. So
Mhm.
if you shot the guitars like right away, like they kind of had whatever UV they were, the wood had whatever UV they were going to have uh, kind of built into the guitar in perpetuity. And if you let the guitars like sit in the sun for like, hey Loretta, I'm talking on the telephone. Can you? Yeah. So if you let the guitar sit in the sun for a couple days, like if we had time for it, like they would really look a lot better for having that kind of
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
that
Shit.
oxidized look.
Yeah, when I was down in Savannah working with Bob, he was always working on, you know, well, not aging them, but doing that with the UV
Yeah,
and trying to, get them to have that kind of golden look.
yeah,
He told me stories about when he was working out of New York or New Jersey in his home shop. He used to build violins, and he would have violins hanging all out in his tree in his front yard.
yeah,
He would just go out every day and hang up 5 or 6 violins and leave them out for the day. And he
yeah.
would do that, over and over and over until he got the color he wanted. And then when I was down there, I mean, he built a couple of light boxes, just built some little boxes so you could hang a guitar in it and just lined them with mylar and put a bulb in there, put a
Like
UV,
like a UV cure bulb or like a blacklight
like
bulb.
like a UV bulb.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I got the we experimented with UV a couple times at Breedlove. Once while I was there, and then I think they did it again. And the guy that was running the finish department before me gave himself a sunburn. Yeah, he burned himself in like 3 seconds. And
Yeah, we had one at Benedetto. We right when Lawrence, I guess Lawrence McFadden came out with a UV filler
yeah,
back in probably 2007, 2008, and we started using it. And yeah, we had the handheld UV light, and that thing was pretty damn gnarly. It's pretty gnarly.
it's dangerous. Yeah, we I think they wound up after I was gone. I think they dipped their toes in it again and made like a idiot box where you put it. There's a kill switch on the door of the box and you put it in there. But I got a hold of their old UV light and was running some experiments trying to age wood for touch up stuff, and I got some pretty interesting results
Ooh,
from it.
that's
And
a good.
yeah, I mean, you don't get you don't get it other than hanging it in the window. You don't get it any other way. So and
Yeah, yeah.
like some of those spruce touch ups, especially spruce touch ups, like like if you're painting in medullary rays or any of that stuff that kind of comes out later in the guitar's life, like it just looks you might get it pretty good from a couple different angles, but
Yeah,
you'd be
I've got
better.
one. I've got one from a builder. It's one of those deals where he had something happen on the router table, uh, and it just kind of snowballed on him. And next thing I know, he sends the guitar down, and it's just got a little arrow pointing to this nasty patch.
Yeah.
And he just I can't do anything else with it. Take it. But it's spruce, and I'm really scared that I'm not going to be able to do much with it because of that reason. I don't feel like you can really hide anything on spruce.
No,
Um,
there's I mean, I've done some stuff on spruce that turned out pretty good. Usually, like spruce, if it already has color, like everybody's like,
mhm.
"Oh my God, you did a spline in a on a sunburst." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, if it's already got color, it gives me something to hide from. Like trying to
Yeah,
use color to make bare spruce look like other bare spruce is just, I mean,
impossible.
it's impossible. And so yeah, like if somebody does a spruce patch and it's not even remotely the right run out or the right right species, sometimes they might grab a like a different species, put a piece of Engelmann and a piece of Sitka or something like that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just never, like on a lot of those, it's best just to put the spline in and say do a really good job with the mechanical fit of it so that people
So
are.
with like, say like your Scoopies, right?
Uh-huh.
So with a UV light, could you install like a Scoopy, and then if you notice that maybe the surrounding wood has oxidized
Hmm.
over time, and you're putting a new clean piece of wood that's been sanded, could you take that UV light and make something with I don't know, hell, even tinfoil,
Yep.
and like give you a hole and be able to cook that little Scoopy?
Yeah,
I mean, is it
I think
possible?
I think you can. The light that I got was at the end of its the bulb was at the end of its life, so I didn't get a really good sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I cooked some bridge plates. Like I did a couple bridge plates where I was like on an old Gibson and I wanted it to look halfway decent.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny though, it does cook it, but the oxidation layer is like super thin. Like even if you just like kind of whisper a little bit of 600 over it, like whatever color you put on there immediately goes away. But but you can, yeah. I think the upshot of it is you can, and like wood only gets to like a certain kind of UV level too. So like a lot of times, I don't even think you'd need to really mask it off.
Yeah.
But I will say that the bulb that I had got really hot. Like, and it also like you may want to use tinfoil just for the heat because it
That's what I.
was in order to get it to kind of do its thing. You also had to kind of get it a little bit close.
Yeah.
It definitely the proximity helped, but so I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know how much to you know to to next level some of that stuff. At the end of the day, we're still just working on guitars, and
Right. That's
a lot
right.
of these guys don't want to pay the kind of money to have kind of some of this cutting edge stuff done. It's interesting to do from a intellectual standpoint, but like we were talking about with the uh, these ridiculous expectations that clients are getting because people are kind of competing with each other to produce these better and better results, or maybe they do it because it's not a competition but an intellectual exercise. It gets out there, like it gets out there, and then it gets on forums, and then guys, yeah, they it kind of in a vocation that's already ridiculously underpaid for what we're doing. It just it's almost like the manager that just heaps more expectations on, and you're just constantly working Saturdays because you're supposed to pull these rabbits out of a hat. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but
sometimes, I get myself in those situations.
that's true.
Sometimes I'm doing something and I just get like a little stroke of inspiration. I'm like, oh, I want to do it like this. I think I can do it better than that or whatever. And then you end up opening up a can of worms on a guitar that, like you said, it might not even justify that much time. But, we do enjoy what we do.
Yeah,
So,
I I do.
sometimes you gotta just be like, just chill and do the job,
Yeah, that's all. That's been a really hard lesson for me to learn, and I don't think I've fully learned it yet even. But yeah, when is when, and what
When
deserves
is
what.
90% or 95%?
Yeah,
Like, when is that just 100%?
but
You gotta learn to back off of it, I think.
yeah, and the touch up stuff, like I saw that guy's stuff who's other than people I don't know about, which I'm sure they're out there. Um, his stuff was really good, but it still wasn't invisible. I can't even get to his level though. His stuff was um, so beyond what I'm up to now. Like I'm
Don't be so modest.
no, I'm being completely realistic. Like I've done some crazy stuff, but I've never done anything remotely what I mean. So on like that Les Paul I was talking about, like he straight up fooled a vintage dealer. Like if it wasn't for me seeing it, Buzzy would have been like he would have totally missed it. So if you're fool, and I've never produced anything that on maple in the middle of a Les Paul. Like I've never produced anything that would fool a dealer. They'd go, "Oh, that's good repair,"
Yeah, it's a hell of a repair, no doubt.
the yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Being the best in the world didn't seem to make him very happy. So I
Yeah.
suppose I suppose there's that too. But that's why I always think about people that are better than me at this. I always think you must have been a huge disappointment to your parents. Like they must have had a lot of expectations for you, and you just, I'm doing guitars, mom and dad, and they were like, we set aside money for you to go to law school, okay? But that's a joke. Well, Matt, I should probably let you get going, get back to
All
your,
right.
and thanks again for talking, and I'll get this up on the internet, and
Yeah, man, it was awesome, man. It was my pleasure. I appreciate you inviting me to come do it. And yeah, man, I'd love to come back if you'd like to have me back.
yeah, we'll cycle around for sure. Like especially if we get more in the weeds on the in the finished stuff on my Patreon page. We'll definitely cycle back around and get some more finish goodies. So,
Sounds good, man. Sounds good.
all right, man. Have a good day.
All right. We'll see y'all later. Take care,
Okay,
man.
bye bye.